Hey, it's Tom, and today we have a care video for the Kentia Palm. So if you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know that I like to have my houseplants by the side of me and in full shot. However, this one is just too big. I've had to tie it up as it is to try and keep it away from me and just keep it as much as you can see in the shot as it is. I will show plenty of B-roll and some photos so you can see the true scale of this houseplant. It's actually my second largest plant I own, with the first being the rubber tree, which is behind me here. But yeah, it's pretty massive and it spreads, so it's a very large house plant. Now, you may have one that's as large as mine, or maybe one that's a bit smaller, but it doesn't matter. It's all good, okay? So the care requirements for them are exactly the same. Okay, in terms of its light needs, it's an extremely adaptable house plant. It does not ideally want full bright sunlight. It's a little bit harsh for it. Yes, they could probably acclimatize to that location and get used to it. Absolutely fine. If that's really where you want to put it, it probably could get used to that. But it kind of wants a medium light level. Somewhere in your home, medium light is going to be perfect. Another amazing quality of the Kentia Palm is it can deal with low light and not just cope with it. Sometimes they can almost possibly thrive in it as well. So my one is at the bottom of a staircase, which has no windows, it has no grow lights, anything like that, and it's fine. And it's been there for years. And this year it's grown new fronds, so it's still producing new growth, even though it's in an awful position. Awful. I cannot grow any other houseplant there other than a ZZ plant. Okay, it's just too dark. So this one can cope. So that is obviously great news. Looking at watering, I would say every single palm I've ever owned is very thirsty, and they consume and use a lot of water. It's normally, I suppose, because the pot is quite small relative to the size of the plant, but even when it's a little bit not quite like that, the palm still seems to drink like a crazy amount. It is thirsty. They always are. And this one is the same. It's a very thirsty houseplant. Now, it doesn't mind a little bit of drying out, so you absolutely can soak it and then leave it until it dries before you water it again. That's okay. You can also keep it moist reasonably constantly. Now, we'll get onto the problems later on in this video, because I think this is where people sort of make a few mistakes with the watering. Constantly moist just means damp. It's not wet. When I say that, I don't mean keep it constantly wet where it's literally saturated all the time. That's too much. It needs to just be damp, just barely moist. That's kind of what I'm talking about here. So if you're not sure what that is, or if you're a bit confused, the best thing to do is to water it well and then don't water it again until it's dried out, and then come back and give it another good soak. So yes, in winter and in low light locations, you will end up needing to water it less. But even then, even my own experience is this plant is still quite thirsty, and I will still probably water it maybe once a week, maybe every 10 days, even though it's not in an ideal location. In winter, I do water it less because it's cooler and it just doesn't need as much water. So that's probably looking at more like once every 2 weeks or so. But that's my growing conditions. If you're in a warm location with a lot more light, you may end up watering it more frequently. All right, let's talk repotting and potter mix. So they do not like root disturbance. They do not need to be repotted on a regular basis. That's the takeaway here, okay? Now, when should you repot? You can repot it when the potting medium starts to break down, or if you just know that the container is too small for this plant. So when I say the potting mix is breaking down, you can start to see the bottom parts of the plant, the roots. I got some footage because it's happening on mine. I probably need to consider maybe a little repot of my plant. But I am conscious that they just don't really respond well to being moved into new containers, and they can be quite fussy about that. So I'm not in an urgent hurry to do it because I'm a bit worried about what might happen. A lot of people repot their plants and they end up with disaster happening. So yeah, don't do it unless you absolutely have to. In terms of pot and mix, so when you do decide you want to take that gamble, maybe that's a bit extreme, but when you do want to move it onto a new container, the pot and mix can be free draining. Yep, that's absolutely fine. But they will also do quite well in a sort of more of a heavier mix, a little bit more moisture retentive. They're okay with that. Feeding is also straightforward. It just needs a feed a couple of times a year. That's probably absolutely enough. If you're growing it in a premium location, when I say premium, I mean good light levels and you're treating it so well, then it may need a little bit more because it's going to be growing. It's going to need those nutrients for fuel to produce its new growth. If it is not an optimal location, maybe it's a bit low light, maybe you're a little bit sloppy with your watering and it's a little bit cooler perhaps, then it will definitely need less feed. We're talking maybe once every 3 months, should be absolutely enough. Now, in terms of what you should use, a normal houseplant feed is probably a good starting point. If you want to be a bit more specialist, then you could go for a fertilizer which is targeting palms, and you should be all right with that. So in terms of humidity, they are a tropical palm. So if you can provide a higher level of humidity, they will love you. So do that if you can. If you can't, they are somewhat adaptable and they can cope with medium humidity levels. We're talking maybe around 50%. If you start to go lower than that, you're going to have quite nasty side effects. Now, my humidity level is around 50 to 60 most of the year, and I still get brown tips. Just a little bit, but it's enough to be on the ends and a little bit irritating and annoying to see. But I can't really do anything about it. I still like this plant. I still love it, but I can't realistically increase the humidity where it is. So it's kind of just has to cope with it. But it can deal with it. In terms of temperature, so they are, as I say, tropical plants originally. So they would prefer it to be warmer. They can, though, surprisingly adapt to reasonably cooler temperatures. We're talking, I wouldn't really want to go much lower than 10 degrees Celsius, which is this Fahrenheit, but they can cope to that. That's fine. They can, well, I've read reports that they can cope down to around 0 degrees, which is freezing. Now, I wouldn't want to risk that personally, and they are houseplants, so they shouldn't be somewhere in your home where that temperature is where you reach that temperature. But who knows? I don't know who's watching it, where you are in the world. You could be anywhere. You could be, a really cold place. I'm not sure, but yeah, keep it away from freezing if you can. Well, keep it away from freezing. Not if you can. Keep it away from freezing. Even if it can survive that, you will end up with damage on the leaves. Okay, so you don't want to do that. We'll get onto that in a second, but you don't want to damage these leaves. You want to keep them as pristine as possible. Right, moving on to the problem segment. And I've filmed this 3 times already, and this is my 4th go. It's too long. I just keep talking and talking because there's so many problems. I have had so many problems with this houseplant. That's good. I can share my knowledge, I can share my experiences, but there's a lot to talk about. So at this point, I would tell you, I have an article on my website, which I have written, which covers off all the problems in much, much more detail. So I will hyperlink to them below in the description, and I will put the hashtag thing so you can jump straight to it like a jump link, and you can follow through and see if there's anything that stands out. And you can read about it in your own time if you need more information or you want more time to process. Let's go fast now. Okay, so the most common problem I've had with this plant has been thrips. I didn't used to take them seriously, but they started to destroy my houseplant collection. So now I think that they are serious pests that need to be dealt with quickly and fast. And they unfortunately did serious damage to my Kentia Palm because they love palms. For some reason, they love palms. Anyway, the reason they're so damaging is because if you don't treat them, they will spread and they leave behind marks. As they feed on the leaves, they leave permanent damage to them. Now, the issue with these plants is they're slow growing, which I've covered already. And because they're so slow growing, the damage is not easily replaced. Most houseplants, you can remove a leaf and it could be replaced. Damage to these plants could take years to actually recover from in terms of a new one growing. So take pests seriously and stop them damaging your plant. Yellow leaves are normally a sign on palms of underwatering. It can, of course, be caused by overwatering as well, but generally, if you're underwatering your palms, you could end up with yellow leaves. That's not normal for most houseplants. Most houseplants will go yellow when they're overwatered, but these are a little bit special, a little bit different, so that's something else to watch out for. Brown tips, we've covered already, normally always caused by low humidity. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about those. If that's the case, just trim off the ends. That's all you can do. If you cannot realistically increase your humidity levels. If you are open to doing something, get a little humidifier, something like that, or get a big one if you have a lot of houseplants. Brown fuzz on the underside of the leaves, fronds, are caused by natural. So when they come out, they have a sheath around them. It's like coconut core. It's quite fibrous, and it gets attached to the frond as it's coming up, and it's tiny bits Sticky, not really that much. It easily comes off, so just get a cloth, done, it's gone. This is not a pest, it's not an insect. You don't need to worry about it, it's normal, but it does look a bit weird. Just wipe it off. In terms of leaves going brown or black, that's probably one of the most common issues. Not normal in some cases, normal on others. Okay, it's normal if it is one of the older fronds, it's one near the lower part of the plant. That's reasonably normal. Sometimes if you push this against a wall and it's tight against the wall and there's some of the fronds on the back that are getting no light whatsoever, they will go brown and they just disappear. Well, not disappear, they go brown and you have to remove them, which isn't great. But it could be that pushed against the wall, so to give it a bit more space. But also, there is a load of other causes that can cause that browning when it's not one of the older leaves. Be ready for this. Okay, so we could be talking about overwatering, underwatering, sun damage, extremely low humidity, lack of feed. I want to say overfeeding, but I don't know. I don't think it's that. Extremely cold temperatures, possible freeze damage can all cause browning of the fronds, which is not great. And if the entire thing goes that color, if it all goes black, you have to remove the frond. Do not pull it out. Do not yank it. You will damage it. The stems, you will damage them if you try and do that. Get a pair of scissors and just cut them as close to the base as you can. But do not pull them. You will damage the rest of the plant. And that's it. Okay, I've gone through that fast. I think I'm happy with this. Like I say, if you have more problems that I haven't covered or you want more information, either link below or leave a comment and I will do my best to come back to you. But tell me about your conditions. I need to know more. I don't just say I've got brown splotches. I need a little bit more information. So tell me things that you've noticed, what you've done, what you've seen. Give me the information. It will help me to answer your question. Okay, so there always comes a point when you've been filming where you realize you have so much footage that this video is going to be ridiculously long. And there's a lot of editing to do to trim it down, I can tell. So I am going to stop now anyway, because I think I'm run out of things to say. I haven't run out of things to say. I've got loads more to say, but that's enough for this video. If you want more information, leave comments. I would do my best to answer any questions, and we can just talk, okay? So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.